Oh, all right. Let me switch this one output here because I love the sound of my own voice, but not that much. Hello, Internet. How are we all doing today? Aside from the fact that I just totally destroyed your speakers, probably. So, let's get some of these chats open, see what I can see here. So, looking good. Just double check that I'm coming through. Yes. Beautiful. Now you can all hear my terrible voice in very high quality. All right, welcome to the stream. This is I'll say brief, but probably won't be, unboxing of the stems that I have essentially bounced down from our most recent album, The Light Years, to all the different instrument groups. So anyone who cares to purchase this for download, which will be available very soon, I'm putting the link up today, and the actual download will be available mid-July. This will be for anyone who wants to see how all the different parts of this record come together, and how we decided on some of these sounds and whatnot. So, without further ado, I can hop through some of these songs kind of one by one. And actually, I apologize, I'm gonna start with turn this AC off. It's really hot in here in the Northeast. We're in Boston right now, for anyone who doesn't know. I can very easily just hop through some of these songs, sort of go track by track and show you what each part sounds like. And then I have like a couple of sections that I can kind of hone in on and show off certain parts that may have not been like super audible in the album recording, since everything's sort of supposed to be supporting, like the vocal and the guitars and the two most important parts. Who needs drums and bass and all those other things? So you can hear some of those elements that were maybe not like in the forefront, but we're adding to the whole texture, flavor, space thing, as it were. So cool. Yes, this will be on bandcamp.com. And you know what? I might as well put this up right now so you can peruse that. Yeah. So this will be a pre-order technically, but you can buy it today. And if you do download it today, you will be given an immediate download of our most recent release of the Light Years instrumental version, which features a couple remastered, it's remastered by me, and has some more piano tracking parts from Richard, since when we originally performed the songs in the studio, we only had like a handful of spots, since he came in sort of late in the game for him to play piano on. And since we've been playing the songs live and practicing them and talking about them, we now have a bunch of new parts that Richard is adding to. So we wanted to showcase some of those in a new way, and we put those in the instrumental. So some of the new songs, or some of the songs you'll hear, like some parts that you did not hear on the original record, which is cool. It's cool, I swear. All right, so this is going live right now. For any of y'all who want to check this stuff out, let's throw it in the chat on everybody's pages. Let's see. Aviations, producer pack. This is the content you were waiting for. Sam navigating the internet. I can hear the birds getting agitated outside. All right. So let me know if in the chat there, if that link has showed up to all you lovely people. Heck yeah. I know on, I think Twitch, the stream is like pretty immediate because Twitch is legit. And on the others, like YouTube and whatnot, it might take a minute for you to even hear me asking questions. But yeah, so for anybody who has cared to tune in and has now heard me talking for far too long, I'm gonna go ahead and just play some stuff, but go ahead and let me know if there's specific sections of songs that you wanna hear, or if anyone has questions about the recording process or anything like that. This is a pretty open to anything discussion, totally down to shoot the shit about anything. So, oh yeah, Crispy Link coming in hot, beautiful. So let's check some of this out. So first off, Dizziness. Let's check out this drum track actually. And this might be a great time for me to ask whether or not I just destroyed anyone's headphones or speakers. Those are drums. If they sound crazy, distorted or anything, like definitely let me know. Because that is probably not how they sounded on the record. Or, yeah, let's hope that is not how they sounded on the record. At the moment, these are coming in pretty clear for me. So, let me give you a second to make sure nobody's died. Sounding good. And let's play through a little bit of this first section. We got some drums recorded at the record company in Boston in 2014 of all things. For anyone who doesn't remember the videos that we posted recently, basically across the last year, sort of recapping every single song, talking about a bit of the recording process, and the drums were one of the first things we got really well done way back in the day. I mentioned 2014. So these were a long time coming, and then they actually got recently updated, recently as in like much later in the recording process, around 2016, when a little something called Get Good Drums came out. So that really changed the game. Periphery 3 specifically, just everything about the record really changed the production ethos behind like everything I was doing. We had like some pretty cool sounds going, and honestly, I think we would have had a very, very sick, possibly a little more raw sounding record, which I sort of want to tune into for some future music. That's a different conversation. But when Periphery 3 came around, it seemed like this super hi-fi version of like the high quality raw sound in my head. It was like the hyper real version of what drums would sound like in my head. And so we tried to take a cue from some of those samples and augment the recording that we did somewhat amateurly, but still got like an amazing performance in the room sound of the record company, which I think is now not there anymore since they're moving to a new location. I haven't been keeping up with that much. But we were able to still capture like the live feel and sound of that. So we got a bunch of new impact basically, and like space and feeling from the Get Good Drums samples, but anything that's like cutting through, like if there's an extra kick drum that like hits and you hear like this little extra click to it, like that's all like James, and like the different tonalities of like the snare hits and stuff, like that's all James still coming through. So sample augmentation is a really, really awesome way to make something hit super hard that isn't otherwise. Maybe if like EQ and compression, all that other stuff is just not working, maybe grab some samples, but try not to totally neuter your drummer's performance because they will probably hate you. So let's check a little bit more of this out. James starts hitting things. That would have been a cooler burst snare in hindsight. You can only have so many of those in a record. Boom. So it's probably kind of hard to tell in like a finished recording like this. It ends up being pretty subtle, but like mostly because by the time drums are like processed and all this stuff is thrown at it to make everything hit as hard as it does when there's like just stacks and stacks of guitars and vocals and bass and all this stuff. The snare drum at certain spots, like in like this section specifically, I think like when that heavy section came in, this guy, like you really had to just be in the room to realize that like that snare drum was just like twice as loud as it was in the previous section. I think it's one of the earlier songs that we tracked in the whole like 9 some odd hours we spent tracking. And I don't want to say, because I'm not sure like if like the sound insulation in that studio was like not as high quality as like others or whatever, but like basically like it was like you were still in the same room even if you were in the control room on another wall looking through the glass at James, and like that stuff was getting hit crazy loud. So the tone of the snare almost like has this like just more pop to it because he's like just cranking away at it. And that like happens in like a bunch of different sections on the record, which is awesome. Same with the kicks, as I was saying before. Even though you know, by the time it's gone through the wash, as it were, through the mix and all that, the kicks especially get pretty consistent. But so to that, let's check out like this quieter section and see if we can kind of pick up how even through like all this mixing and samples and whatnot, we still sort of try to retain a level of dynamics in the performance, more like from the tone than the actual like volume and limiting and all that stuff, because everything's got to be loud once it's mastered. That's just kind of how music is nowadays. So let's check out this sound. Ghost notes. Love the cymbal work here. And then the heavy comes. Also, let me just like again stress how like absurd a lot of these sections get. Like, sure, there's some edited drums going on. Like we sort of went with the quantized feel for a majority of this album. Well, on some of the other songs, I can talk more about the tempo matching. What's the word? Tempo mapping. There you go. Of some of the songs to retain some of the feel and stuff. But like, goddamn, even just in the room, these things. Look. You know what, Jake? I was gonna make fun of you in like 5 seconds, but we might as well do it now. So, James Gunnoral, everybody. Now, now that we've bored everyone to tears with these drums, also, real quick, a real staple of the James Gunnoral sound is if everyone else is having a good time playing the music and you're not, just throw in a little one of these. Just so they remember that you're there, you know. Anyway, so Bassland, I can sort of do like a once over for everything, honestly, with this song since it has a lot of the elements here. The bass recording for this was pretty, I won't say haphazard, just we had a lot going on, and so different scheduling made it so that Jacob and I actually got together to record, I think, a good half of the record at James Gunnoral's apartment. And I think this was one of the first songs we did. We sort of bounced around. But the main thing I remember, because I was such a novice recorder with the bass especially, was I didn't know how to properly hook up his Dark Glass pedal, which we did. We did everything with the Dark Glass B7K, by the way. The thing is still like crazy, amazing, staple metal pedal that you should get. Or actually, screw that, get the X7, the new one from Dark Glass, because it's like just as good, if not better. Get Dark Glass stuff. Anyway, advertisement over. I did not know how to properly hook up the DI output from the bass pedal. So for a good, I think, was it this song? Oh goodness. Anyway, maybe I messed that up. But yeah, I didn't know how to do the output right. So I think for this song, I know Quest, the whole song. No, okay, so we started with Quest because that was the one that Jake wanted to nail, and it was sick. We did that whole song without a DI, and I thought a DI was being plugged in, so we only had the bass amp signal. And this song, I think only half of it was the just the bass amp pedal signal. Yeah. Dude, I gotta check, because I'm pretty sure No Beard, like, I would not have allowed that to have a DI, or to not have a DI. But yeah, so for example, like this was actually I'll start with Quest because that riff's better. For Quest, we had just the bass set to wumbo, exactly, Tim. And this is what the bass amp mixed through my whole chain sounded like. And what you will notice is that the bass performance sounds like bass. Because, first of all, Jacob is a fucking alien, as anyone who's played with him will know. But it also was not like quantized into oblivion, like at all, because most of the performances actually, once they were tracked, we just like kept going with the process, and I didn't like think too much about it. we would keep like session organization and whatnot and make sure that like all the markers and tempos and all that stuff was lined up for like software instruments, for like bells and strings and anything else we wanted to add that we couldn't afford to hire someone to play. I remember like on a session we did for some of James's music at Berkeley, we had like hired a friend of mine to play harp, for example, but we can't do that for whole string orchestras when we have all these things going on. So aside from all that organization, the bass quantizing was sort of an afterthought that like only if there was like one or two spots that like I noticed something happening, that was like, you know, maybe like an impact moment where I wanted like everything to hit at a certain spot where it pops in like a really nice way. That's a cool like metal staple thing. Then I would go for that. But this was like pretty much, again, like some finger stuff here, I think, versus pick. I think we went back and forth on that. Might still be pick, actually. Kind of hard to tell in hindsight from what I remember. But point is, like, this sounds like a natural bass performance to me versus maybe like a Scarby bass or a like a fake Logic bass or something like that. That's just sort of a low end sub thing. So ain't nobody got time for that quantizing. That's right. So there's plenty of moments actually here that like on the whole record that where the bass is a little, I think, looser in some spots. Same with the guitar, since I think like naturally when I was tracking, everything was sort of laid back. And it just lined up really, really well with like some super tight drums and kept that sort of real band feel. But like, again, like a real band on like their absolute best day ever, which is, again, the Periphery 3 mentality that I was going for. So let's hear a little bit of this bass and drums together so you can hear. I believe when I exported these that I used the track spacer trick with kick drum and snare drum, or sorry, kick drum and bass, so that the low end of the kick drum was not conflicting with the low end of the bass. And when I printed it for you guys in the stems, that should be apparent in some of the bass parts, so that when you actually play them together, the kick and bass relationship should still be somewhat the same as it was on the record. And I can go into a bit more of that, but I'm sure some of you, at least anyone who has watched any of Nolly's demos on mixing and stuff, know that trick. But let's check out some drums and bass. And see, you don't even have to quantize this stuff when it's just that tight. And real quick, just this next riff, because I love it. Cool. And we'll bounce around a little bit, but let's see. Because I want to come back to the guitars there, but this is like the bass song, or at least it was at first. I think Jake and James actually played the fifth track on this record, Captain No Beard, for like a bass recital thing at Berkeley, like just them two. And unless that didn't happen and I made it up, but if it was to happen, and if it ever did happen, it would sound something like this. Oh, and real quick about this drum intro. We actually set up a second snare drum for the intro, and James can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was like a Black Beauty, something like on the side there, and used it to get like a different vibe. And then like as it was about to hit, he switched back to the Chad Smith signature snare with big wood hoops that we used for the rest of the record, and you can really hear it like crank up when it comes in. Oh yeah, Steve Ferrone snare. Steve Ferrone snare. So this guy is what this sounds like. Big, fat, and ringy. Gotcha. You can really hear the room sound here in the record company. And then that snare, yeah. Holy bass, Batman. Seriously, Andy. And this riff. Okay, Jesus Christ. Hearts in the chat if you need Jake to just friggin' chill. So let's add in, and we can bounce around and I'll highlight some other spots, but just to keep things moving, let's add a little guitar into this section. So for the guitars on this record, we had a bunch of different versions. And even like back in the day, like we considered just starting with, and like where we started with guitar rig, and like a couple of, I think it was like the Van Halen amp, the like 5150 version, for like demos and stuff. And actually Andy helped us with a demo on one of these songs, I'm pretty sure, back when I was doing that. And then somewhere in the process, I think like 2013-ish, I finally convinced some kid on Craigslist to sell me his Act Effects. And then it was all downhill from there. And now, I forget honestly when we settled on the tone, because we were doing DIs for the most part, for everything. And I settled on the Cameron CCV2A amp model. It's an amp model in the Act Effects. It's based on a Cameron CC100 tube head, I believe. And I don't know, like that mixed with this impulse response. It was like one of the 10 or 15 that they just throw at you, fractal, that they throw at you whenever you update your firmware. Dude, you're just in time for guitars, Michael. It ended up being an own hammer impulse, actually, and which I've, after further research, checked out, and all that stuff sounds amazing too, to the point where I was able to find a little more information that it's actually like a high watt FN speaker on like a Marshall cab or something. And I realized in like my amp modeling history, because I haven't used a bunch of these real amps, I've been like pretty partial to like that Marshall Greenback, like warm mid-rangey sound versus like the super scooped metal sound, like rectifiers or the Deep V Mesa Boogie sound. So after finding out that amplifier patch and that impulse, that's like basically the bulk of the sound. Anything else was sort of carving out stuff with EQ just to balance. And then like one day we were mixing some bass after a tracking session, and we were using that patch, like hit a certain level and everything just started gelling at one point. And it was like, yeah, let's just commit to this, because committing to guitar tones is really, really difficult. And to help anyone who's struggling with that, I would say like definitely focus on the drums and bass first, just like we did here, and then let the guitar sort of fill in the gaps. And if you need like if you're going for like a brighter hi-fi mix, then like let that reflect on like your guitar tone. If you need like something thicker and sludgier, then, you know, leave a little more low end and let it smear in with the bass a bit. But like the guitar tone itself is not really going to dictate like how good your mix, as far as metal goes, how good your mix is going to sound. That's really like the space of the drums and the impact and all that stuff. And then like the bass having the proper low end consistently, and any amount of like clank and stuff you want to like blend with the guitars. So I'd say like that upper mid-range mix with the bass and guitar is a pretty important thing to check in for like tone. But the overall tone of guitar, I guess is what I'm saying, is not like super huge. So now that we check this out with bass, real quick refresher on how that sounds without guitars. So for this riff, there's a lot of chordal stuff going on here, and I'm using a Carvin 7-string with D-Sonic DiMarzio pickups. I think it's an Aaron Norton the bridge actually, but they have like a certain level of clarity, even though they're sort of noisy. There's like hiss and stuff coming in whenever you're not playing, but you know, just it's editing and mixing. Just cut those out when you're not playing. Those add like a really awesome level of clarity for like chords and stuff here, and the single notes. So like lots of people like to use like drive pedals, and like Tube Screamer is a really popular thing to throw in front of an amp for metal stuff to get that like chunky, jaunty sound. Yes, we went there. But while I used that for a bit in the Axe effects, for the majority of the tone, again, it was just the amp block and the cab block. I felt like I heard more of like the string actually coming through, and these pickups are super like high output and sharp, so they actually like lend themselves to sort of that Tube Screamer driven sound. And the main thing Tube Screamer does is just grabs a little low end off the guitar, since we're doing low tune stuff, and makes it balance a little better, or be less flubby really before it hits the amp. But could do a little bit of that in the Axe effects without the drive pedal and without adding more saturation. You just get this clarity. So let's check kind of this out. It's like the single notes, and listen to some of the like the arpeggiated like open chords, and how like you can still kind of hear notes going on. And then real quick, which we did a lot on this record, Sam Stringy Heart Chick, yep, is me. We switched pickups a ton, and I'm like crazy anal about that stuff. Feel free to take that comment and record it and use it totally out of context anywhere on the internet now. But specific about like changing pickups for each section. The like split coil twangy sound is like super popular in metal stuff now, and we used that for this section because we thought it'd be super sick. So check this one out. That section was one of the most like confusing through composed things James had ever worked out, and so I had to like do my best to like figure out what the hell any of those chords were, and like rearrange them so we could still get this sort of like jumping back and forth like super low string like argument between like the higher chordal stuff and then like the low string open twangy stuff. But I think it worked out pretty quickly or pretty awesomely. And again, just like the low strings stuff, when it's just open, you can actually hear like the string almost rattling on the fretboard there, because maybe my guitar is definitely not like perfectly set up by any means. But I don't know, it just adds this extra level of like grittiness and stuff to it. And that comes through a lot on the next section too. Right here. You get the idea. There's some cool stuff happening with the tone. And this riff was like one of the few that I actually composed start to finish to add to like the song that James started. And it's still one of my favorites. I think like this song came out really, really awesome. So let's bounce back a little bit real quick for some guitar things. Like I said, I was getting real into specifying like which pickups were being used, and I actually wrote a bunch of notes in the tabs that are available with this producer pack about like which pickups I was using, which like finger position I was using, which like part of the neck, obviously based on like where the actual tabs are written, to get like that certain sound for each part, because based on, you know, which of the 400 strings you're playing on your extended range instrument, like it's gonna have a really different sound. Higher up it's this like round, warm, like tubey sound, and like lower on the fretboard towards the headstock, it's this like sharper, more articulate kind of thing. So based on what you want, use all those buzzwords for figuring out what you wanna do before you even track. But for this thing, in Quest, I went back and forth a lot on like how to make this song work, because it's pretty fast for how I played it. And after listening to like a bunch of Monuments and John Brown stuff, we just decided that we're gonna downpick basically everything, and it's gonna be hard, but we're gonna do it. So a lot of different takes went into this, to get like the sound to hit right. And I think mixed with the right kind of like grindy like clank we got on Jake's bass, like it sounds really, really cool. So let's check that out. Goodness, okay, there we go. That was a big split coil moment. This last riff that like everyone seems to dig. So let's check that out. That's I believe, center position of a 2 humbuckers where the neck pickup is split to be a single coil, but it's using the full humbucker of the bridge position one. So you get this like bite with like the full roundness of like the single coil neck pickup. Cool. Let's see. You guys kind of get the gist of the guitar tones. Let's see, there's a bunch of random what's this even? Like, we have so many tracks going that I try to like bounce down the rhythms into like different sections and the leads into different sections. To talk a little more about these like low gain tones and stuff, I think this middle section in Quest is probably a good feeler for that. Actually, let's just get some guitars going. And then we switch back. Huge difference between the split coil and the neck, or the bridge position stuff. So whenever we need this like big, full throaty, like barky sounding guitar thing going on, like real easy decision there. And this riff is so stupid. To lead you back into that down pick thing. Yeah, so it's funny listening back to these, and I'm sure maybe Jake felt the same way in some spots. Like we can always play things better after the fact, but we just got to get it done. Especially like touring that song a bunch. Quest is now like so much tighter and fun to play live. Let's do a little bit about guitar leads real quick, because this song has some cool ones, especially that solo. I used the same guitar amp cab setup thing on the X-Effects for the leads too, which is fine. There was a lot of EQ, honestly, like lots of deep cuts on like guitar EQs around like, 700, 500 range, and shoving off like basically everything above like 6.5K. So it's like kind of a dark mid-rangey guitar tone. Honestly, just like undid a lot of that EQ for the lead sounds and just cut out just a little bit wherever there was a little bit of like low end gunk and stuff. But to keep going with that, the tone's actually pretty similar, but just add a lot of delay and compression and saturate it a tiny bit more. You get this like slightly different sound. And I also like pretty much use the neck pickup for everything guitar solo related, because John Petrucci. And with the rhythms. So you can hear they both have like the same kind of crunchiness to them. But honestly, if you're like struggling to get a lead to sit in the mix and it's using the same amp as the rhythm sound, just try like a different impulse response or a different amp or something. If they're just different sounds, that'll immediately make it sound clearer and more separated without having to do a bunch of crazy mix stuff. The vocals were missing from this song for some reason, so I just threw those in so we can check those out later. I can show you how we EQ'd the bass. I will have to like hop to a different session, but since we're doing bass and guitar and stuff, like might as well just try it out. So let's find one, because Pro Tools can only do one thing at a time. Avid, that's for you to figure out. Mix sessions. Let's see, Quest was the one that has Come on. There we go. I've been talking this whole time, haven't I? And no one has been able to hear it. All right, well. Thankfully, I didn't embarrass myself for the past, like, 5 minutes. Anyone who, like, is caring to hear what is happening now, let me know if that's functioning. I forgot that my audio is routed through Pro Tools. So whenever I switch a session, I'm just going to have to import. I'll do it better next time. Anyway, so. Great. How about now? Anybody? So cool. All right. So the moment you all been waiting for, bass track with some automation. There you go. Looks like some sessions were chopped up for what, like volume adjustment stuff. Maybe a couple quantizing things here and there, but like nothing major, honestly. So let's take a look at this. No dice. Oh, because it's going to. Actually, wait, maybe everyone else was hearing it, but I was. Oh, that's also why. Because this is going to be fun, guys. Everything is set up for my. If anyone hates Pro Tools now that they're seeing me deal with this, like, you're completely justified. Headphones, inputs, okay. I think these are still the same. What is happening? Yeah, seriously. All right, can everyone still hear me? Because I can't hear me. And can I hear my voice? There we go. So do we have some bass? Yes. Thank goodness. All right. So let's look at that. We have definitely way too many plugins. On the actual track itself, we're running what looks like some compression on this one track on the way in. EQ with some interesting decisions there. 200, 150, like that thing is always a fun build-up area and lots of low-end instruments. So we checked that out, and I honestly was just like, doing my safety high and low pass on everything as well. This is probably like clank and like grit areas that I wanted to hype up a bit. Actually, you can even just hear them. If you isolate sections, you can like go around and find stuff that like will sound cool. And you can hear like that just by itself. Really annoying to have just like hovering in your ears all the time. So getting that out of the way early is good. And you can see the compression on the initial part is not even that crazy. So just sort of evening it out. But it is on full mix and not a crazy attack either. But the key thing here for bass especially is this high pass filter that's on a lot of the Slate compressors. That keeps a lot of the low end that's initially coming in. Because you'll see this compressor is actually before the EQ to keep the low end from triggering a lot of the compression. So it's mostly getting slammed down by the clankiness, which is, in my opinion, a good thing. And this was sort of a later thing that came in the game, a la Nolly stuff. The Saturn processing. This is definitely a really, really subtle thing because we get most of the distortion from the actual B7K itself. Like if I was to bypass literally all of this stuff, and do just the amp pedal sound. God. There we go. The Saturn processing is just a really subtle thing. Looks like I'm just using it to separate the low end below like 1K-ish, like 1200K, and this slightly gritty band that's not even mixed all the way in. So to even just add that element in without the EQ, the high pass filter is a big thing, but adds this to the sound. It kind of like smooths out the clankiness, and that top end like warms it up and makes it sound a little more like an amp before it's even hit like a cabinet impulse, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, impulse response is a sound wave captured or whatever of a microphone in front of a speaker, so that if you just put this file over like on top of your sound, it'll make it sound like it was being played through a speaker. So this little distortion thing helps in this range from like 2K to 7K-ish to smooth some of that out and get it that ampy sound before it even hits there. So the high pass filter though definitely makes it a lot darker as well to add more of that amp sound. And the compression just evens it out. So anyway, that's all that happened to the bass on its own. And then if I was using a DI, which is I think why this was set up this way, I would have just put everything on one track probably, but you can only use so many plugins. Let's just get rid of this. And let's see, the next thing that runs into is this MixIR plugin, which is what loads those impulse responses. And it looks like I went through a bunch of different ones, but the only ones actually being used is this D112. Really? No, there's some other stuff in there. So it's actually a mix of 3 different ones at different levels, which looks like the third block is where it's actually being used. MixIR is pretty detailed in that like all your files in your computer are actually available here, and then you can load them in here and choose like how much of a blend is in each one just by the number. And each of these like block things, I was literally about to point it on my screen and I really can't see it. Each one of these banks essentially, which is a block, is like kind of like a bank, is a group of impulse responses that you can then control with sliders over here. So it looks like I had the D112, which is this big, like almost, it's a kick drum mic honestly, on an SVT 810, that big refrigerator looking bass amp, 2 inches away from the edge of the cap on the speaker. And the third one was a 57, 3 inches away. Looks like a high shelf boost, which is just another impulse responses can also have like outboard gear stuff in there. So it looks like it's an EQ that's adding a little bit of top end in addition to like whatever actual like EQ I'm doing in there. And here's another boost at 4800, which is some upper mid range, like getting close to the top end clank area. Like honestly, anywhere between that 1 and 7K range that I was doing with the Saturn is like a fun range to mess around with for bass clank. And then looks like there's a little bit of a 421, which is probably like also the bulk of the sound, like these two guys doing the heavy lifting. Also 2 inches away. Interesting. I thought it would have been closer. But yeah, let's see a before and after with this guy. Yeah. So that's a huge, big volume boost too, but like this is the bulk of the sound that we had for the record, honestly. And you can see when I did that though, or you can hear when I did that though, like ton of low end like rumble and stuff comes back in, because that's just naturally what these amps sound like when you're like putting your face right up next to it. So let's turn this guy on. And what I like about these EQs, other than the Pro Qs, which are the ones we were looking at before, this hilarious one that I'll look at in a minute, how you can actually see, the waveforms and all this stuff that it's showing you. These EQs in the Stephen Slate libraries make you, force you to listen to it. So we have some more bass clank, or actually this is like a mid-range trick. That's a nollie trick there. But we have some upper mid-range stuff going to add even more, which is hilarious. This one is literally doing nothing. But we have two EQs. These guys are really, really cool for bass because they're super strong. I only did a 2 dB or whatever boost here, but probably on another EQ, this would feel like 7 or 8. It's crazy strong. So a little bit of this low mid thing, and then the upper mid thing. Actually did it twice, it looks like, for some reason, instead of just turning that one up more. And then a little bit of saturation from this drive. And then all we have here is this revival thing for thickness. It's just another generic, I don't know what this actually does kind of thing, but just seemed to add a cool layer of bottom end saturation. I think it's some sort of resonant low end filter, which I can go into more detail, but I'm sure I've bored everyone else already. At this point, so these guys are really cool. And with that in, you get this more focused mid-range growly thing that honestly by itself sounds like it's a bit more woofy and annoying, but once it goes through the wash one more time with all these crazy things, you get this cool clear thing. And one thing we skipped, because I wanted to do the real obvious tonal shaping thing, was this guy, multi-band compression. Just pin the low end when you can. Looks like I was doing it pretty subtly because it wasn't that crazy, but this range especially, the low mid stuff is what was giving me the rumble, so I wanted it to be super consistent, so we used multi-band compression to do the thing. Cool. What is this? Do not even know. It's a limiter. Limiter! Doing pretty much nothing. Just a little bit of checking in on stuff. Let's see. Track spacer. Now that we're actually coming back to it. Definitely not even loaded up at all. Let's see if it can get a kick drum going. Yeah, so you can see the kick drum every time it hits on this track, since this is set horribly, will actually sidechain and lower the volume of the low end of the kick to a hilarious amount. But if you use it sparingly and also only focus it on the low end, I have no idea where it was because Pro Tools deleted everything. I want to keep the sub on the in the bass, I think. So I want to kind of just have those guys blend more and actually duck out just the mid-range. So maybe 300-ish or so, and turn it up just a little bit. So that's really obvious. But you back it off. And it just makes it a little more subtle. So without it, it's just low end, it's just happening. Actually, let's skip it to this double bass and you can really hear. Just clears it up a little bit. And you can hear this kick drum mic. That bleed coming through because it's a kick drum mic. And that happens. I'm sorry. Get over it. So we mixed that with a little bit of a sample and some room sound to get the final thuddy kick drum tone. But you can hear the bulk of the weight of the kick drum is the kick mic. So bass land, that's basically it. I think puns. We ran through a little bit of this tape saturation thing, which is honestly really subtle. Actually, no, it's not that subtle. Let's do a before and after on that, because this low biased version and the 1/2 inch, 2 inch, and the 15 ips, these guys really make a super thick, low-endy thing happen with bass and kick drums, which I used both of them on. So let's see what that does. It kind of like rounds off the top end a tiny bit too, like those really, really high clanky frequencies that were mostly taken away by like the amp and the EQ and stuff. And then the last thing, which I'll be surprised if this is even loaded. Definitely is not. Yep. If this was working properly, there would be a reverb here, like a room verb. That's just a little bit of like a small, like concrete room, I think, with like a reverb decay of like 1/2 second or something like that. But like just very, very low in the mix. So it gives this bass like this 3D sound. I'll have to do it on another song because this one is all kinds of messed up. But yeah, that's bass. Before I bore anyone else to death, I'm gonna open the producer pack again and like let's just jump into a couple other things. Okay, so goodbye for 2 seconds. Oh my God, have I been, how long has it been out? Oh my God. So yeah, maybe switching sessions is not like a good idea. I'll do a different session for just mixing things. Cool. All right. Anyone still with me here? Word, thanks, man. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not sure what was going on. That was a routing issue. Gremlins. All right. Anyone who couldn't hear what I was just talking about, here's some vocals.
For death, for life.
As far as vocals go, if I assume your quad tracking question is probably guitar related, if you can hit me with that, Johnny. Vocals, we just stack as many as needed. But yeah, there are a couple quad track sections on the album, and I can jump around to those in just a sec.
Through patterns of wire, I raise my head to comprehend your grace and rest.
And for anyone who hasn't heard the samples at the end of this song, this is all like Majora's Mask stuff. Bell tower and whatnot. There's also some cool string things happening, like a fake cello. I think it's LA scoring strings, I believe. Like, it's not like the most like pristine sounding thing ever. I've EQ'd it a lot, but like I found like these are like great raw materials for making your own like isolated string tracks for like a rock song. Yeah, so quad tracking stuff. Let's check it out. This song actually has a really, really sick quad tracked section. I think it's this. Yeah, and for whatever reason, it's just this first breakdown. So I'll play it a little before, and let it play through this part where you can see this guy right here, is quad tracked with the guitar on the bridge position, so it's like nice and heavy. As I was talking before, like that DiMarzio D-Sonic that we use is really, really articulate. And it's blending another 2 takes of the performance on the split coil neck position, I think actually in the middle. So it's a little bit of the humbucker on the bridge and a split neck to get this like that twangy, sharp sound. So that's this by itself. It's like really like Animals as Leaders-y. And then the other one is the bridge pickup. That's like all the barking dog sounds. And then putting them both together. It just gets really obvious that like something is missing almost when you take this out. Put them together. So it really like fills it out. Let's see, is this another one? It's just like a bunch of guitars, so never mind. Let's see. That's not lined up at all. I'm gonna have to look at that, make sure the quest ones are done right.
Bow your head.
Cool. Come on, Pro Tools. Sheesh. All right. There's one more cool quad track one in Concrete Kitten, where we have this crazy outro with like the lead guitar and all this other stuff happening. Yeah, let's play this section by itself actually.
Bring me back to me. Nights when it's filled with nothing now. I didn't know this. You're coming over like the best things to
So that middle part where it just goes nuts, that was a part that actually I wrote one day to like break up that section and had it all fleshed out and sent it to James. He was like, what the fuck was that? So what we got going on here is 2 takes of a really low gain guitar on different pickups, I believe, and the bass all playing the same thing. So it's like 5 tracks of messiness. So by itself, we have the first guitar on the at the bottom here. That sounds like the bridge pickup with like slightly lower gain, and then adding on top of that, like twangy clean thing. And when you put those together, so as long as it's played tight, quad tracking stuff is actually a really good way to get like this like 3-dimensional thing, and a periphery does that a bunch. As far as like using it all the time, this would be the more common way to use it all the time if you did like a whole section. But again, you got to do it like you got to play really tight or edit your guitars like really well. Because if there's just more noise and the playing is sloppy and the notes are kind of not lined up, then that's just going to add more confusion to the mix, basically. But if you also have a super tight bass player who can do this, God, then you get all this stuff together and it sounds awesome. And then add the drums. Yeah, and I think for sparingly we used a quad track at the end too. Just to beef up those last notes. And this song had a lot of low gain, so was it not that much gain actually. And when I was tracking it, it was kind of hard to do it with that little amount of gain. It just didn't feel right. So I'm pretty sure what ended up happening is I tracked it with like a lot more, and then in the DI like reamping process, when we settled on this tone, I went back and just reamped it with as little as I could get away with, just listening. So there's definitely something to be said for like having plugins or amp simulators that you can sort of dial in a tone after the fact just for sound versus feel. Feel is definitely going to help get the right performance. So if you don't have something that feels good, then your guitar player or whoever you're recording is going to probably just play worse, so the performance will be worse. But if that's not a factor really, then, you know, go back and get what sounds good versus whatever was printed. So let's see. I'm going to pick a section real quick because Void, my instrumental, like, Berkeley project basically that became an Aviations interlude song, has a bunch of crazy stuff going on, and especially in like clean guitars and things like that. So let's see. If I were to even just solo like these guys here. what we got going on here is this really like bizarre Axe Effects patch that I'm not even sure I have anymore, honestly. Like I just kept throwing things into as like many effects as I could into it to get this effect. I was trying to emulate, honestly, this section of, if I have Spotify, if it'll work, of a Deer Hunter song. Oh, it's gonna crash everything. From one of their latest albums. And it was really cool. Let me turn this guy on. Oh, it's gonna crash everything. One of their latest albums. Give me half a second. And it was really cool. Let me turn this guy on. Come on. There we go. Oh, it's gonna crash. Am I still not hearing? Oh, right. One of their latest albums. It would help if I had any idea what I was doing. Half a second. There. And it was really cool. There we go. Cool.
But what if the silence is broken by the ones you've loved?
Just listen to that album. So that sort of spacey sound is what inspired this guy. And I think it's actually a good clean amp mixed into a bunch of other stuff, but it uses a rotary filter, like a organ Leslie thing, and I used a expression pedal to speed it up as it continued. Oop, nope, not Spotify. To get this cool like tremolo space effect, which is awesome. So, now that we've done that, cleans and acoustics together. Hopefully my mic's a little better now, sorry. That acoustic is just the acoustic guitar that's behind me. This thing, it's a Art and Luthery Canada guitar, Go Canada. This is my dad's old guitar, actually. And nothing special, literally just that and a 57 and some mixing. But yeah, it's how that acoustic stuff mixes with clean guitars that I stole from Dream Theater, and I just love it. It's actually more apparent on this section, I think. Ooh, that was cool. See, I don't even remember half the stuff that I did here. It's like this reverse thing. This all happened so quickly right before the record was released. And we still have to do another song like this in the future, probably. So lots of cool acoustic stuff happening here. But let's see, there's actually, I think this was the section that I wanted to check out. If you actually soloed everything, or just muted the guitars, bass and drums, like the core of the band, this thing straight up sounds like some crazy, like Santa's workshop. Now in Zora's domain or something. All this piano stuff was recorded at Richard's place after the fact, many years later, from the original piano recording in 2015. Which is why it sounds so cool. I think there was a section though in this song where the piano was like chorused or something, and actually it's weird. It's like that's something I used on a demo recently too. That Richard said, he asked me what the sound was. It had this sort of like slightly chorused effect. This is definitely a little overdone, but yeah, check this out. Dude, it's kind of like how it blends the bass. We didn't leave it on for everything. Just in a couple spots to get this like wide, low piano thing. Now that we're doing bass with Dingwall and Werner, like we're gonna go for that more pianoistic low end on the bass, because the bass that Jake recorded with was not even a Dingwall that he's known for now. It was like a custom module or model. Don't totally remember, but yeah, those synths at the end were a really cool thing. Definitely another Periphery 3 inspired thing, and I forget exactly what they're made with. I'm pretty sure it's like a Pro Tools stock virtual instrument with like a handful of like bit crushing and effects and stuff on it, but like there's like video game synths, and I want to use this more. Supposed to just add a little bit of a floaty, wavy thing to the end. But yeah. So let's see. Anything else anyone has wanted to see or had questions about? If not, I can jump ahead to like some more cool vocal things. There's one or two more sections I can show off that sound really cool when you take like the guitar and bass out. The vocals and face waves, for example. Bunch of cool, crazy stuff happening here.
Day-to-day nothings, the sound that sets you're thinking, you're barely speaking. Lonely days, captivated by the glow. It's too easy to stay still and alone.
Honestly, this is a mood right here.
Captivated, so stagnated.
Acoustic version.
Why don't you come back here every once and a while?
For this, when we were demoing vocals, we were messing around with what to do because this song was really hard. We had a vocoder thing going and using some older VST stuff. I think it was a Waves one, actually. This thing, Morphoder. It looks kind of like Windows 98, but like it has some cool sounds in it. And we ended up with this. It's interesting, like for those those are actually like chords I've worked out to like have MIDI trigger which like chords and arrangement stuff would be played while he's singing doing the thing.
Captivated by the glow. It's too easy to stay still and alone.
So with the clarity of like the actual vocal with all that stuff below it, it's interesting. I would have probably now tried to make this a little clearer, the vocoder, and now I would have used Isotope Vocal Synth 2. Not a plug, it's just a crazy cool plugin. But I'll come back to that in a sec. But the actual, just the harmonies in this section, like I said, I like to leave the main vocal with just this one thing in the middle, especially like in a section like this where it's like really intimate. The lead vocal is not this like crazy doubled thing yet. It's just
captivated by the glow.
This straight up perfect chorus section that Adam wrote. And let's look at the backgrounds.
Captivated by the glow. It's too easy to stay still and alone.
Interesting stuff. It's not as wet as I remember.
It's so stagnated. Why don't you come back here every once and a while?
So there's like so much cool shit in there. And if you were to throw, oh, come on.
Captivate.
To like put this on there even.
It's too easy to stay still and alone. Captivated to stagnated. Here everyone's in the world.
There's a bunch of like weird stuff that this thing does.
Captivated by the glow. It's too easy to stay still and alone.
Like, it's nuts. You can go crazy with that. Like, I would probably have used that if we had it at the time. Anyway, let's see. These background vocal sections are really always fun to do. Oh, yeah, that was a hard one.
These white lies won't last.
You can only get like 1 or 2 of those a day, and then it's all over. But yeah, these like crowd vocal things. That's all just all atoms, just a bunch of different atoms. For different gang vocal stuff, like in this next section, we, like James, Adam, and I all got in a vocal booth. Very DGD, Coheed-esque style stuff there. But yeah, depending on the part, it would either be all atoms or we would all get together and do it. So let's see. We have a bunch of different stuff on this section.
I don't wonder.
This is pretty similar to the section in Dizziness with like the layered contortionist thing.
I don't wonder why I've been under.
I love all those crunchy cluster chord stuff. Like, yes. Also, thanks for the chat, Adam. Yeah, we used that AKG 420 because 420 guys, come on. That was not originally the vocal part that was there. By itself, this was the part that was written for it.
Pave the way, pave the way, all by myself. Pave the way, pave the way.
But with this other layer and having it be so simple, it created this like big wash of a bed.
Pave the way, pave the way, all by myself. Pave the way, pave the way.
Which is awesome because I want to do more of that like call and response kind of thing. All right, let's see. With the vocals and the gang vocals, because, sorry James, not sorry.
Don't put me with a broken, destroyed face. Tell me, just tell me one thing that you'll regret most of all the lies. With a broken, destroyed face. Tell me, just tell me one thing that you'll regret the most of all.
Bass drop. All you gotta do is take an 808, distort the crap out of it, elongate it, and murder your neighbor's ears with loud bass drops. But yeah, bunch of stuff happening there. That like cool dancey vocal.
Think that you'll regret most of all the lies. Think that you'll regret most of all the lies.
Oof. Even just by itself.
One thing that you'll regret most of all the lies. Broken, destroyed face, tell me, just tell me one thing that you'll regret the most of.
Oh yeah. That section was heavy and fun to do. And real quick, just so you can hear a bit what was going on the rest of that. Oh, okay. Now this is the thing I have to do, because this section didn't used to have a breakdown. I added that as a joke, and then we just kept it, because joke enough about something and it just might happen. So what I noticed while we were doing mixing and stuff on this, though, was that just bass and drums on that section sounds sick. This is cool and all. We should honestly just like repeat that section live and do that again. Let's add the vocals in. But yeah, so real quick for the guitars and stuff there for that quad tracking back in the day, whoever's asking that. We have one guitar, pair. Did you hear that ducking when the bass drop happened? And then another guitar, I think it's like a half step up or something. Blend together. It's actually the same, but that one's half step up. We also went crazy with the bass tone there. And that I think I amped that up a little bit with some like saturation and stuff. But yeah, we mostly just cranked up that B7K pedal and distorted the heck out of it. Real quick, I'll jump back to that vocal for sure. And dizziness, we got some hilarious stuff happening. Under the screen section, I talked a little bit about this before, but right here, it's a bounce down stem for you to use and reference. But we actually did was, I think, probably at least 4 or 5 tracks of me screaming in like different registers, one like a really like low one, and then another like higher scream, and then like a middle like kind of, but they're all sort of like yelly hardcore thing because I'm not really like a death metal person. I don't really know how to do that. But here's what it sounds like by itself. Just fun. Like you can even hear like the inhale stuff. Yeah, I literally could only do that like 3 or 4 times, and then I was like done, which made Adam happy because he was like struggle busting all day, doing all these crazy vocals, and he's like, "Yes, you feel my pain." But like, hold on, the let's see, the next section with all this kind of yelling stuff. We use like this Pro Tools Verify effect, which I talked a little about earlier. This guy can just like slow down anything. So even take it on the screams and just like do it. And it's like a fun Pro Tools inherent thing. But yeah, underneath these guys, we have all these like different versions for mixing, I guess. So it's a bunch of like production stuff to make this like super heavy section. So yeah, there's lots of vocal stuff happening here. I think lots of like pitch shifting. Just again with like the robotic nature and stuff. Like we could try and like even I have a lower voice register now, so if we're doing lower stuff, we might make it sound a little more natural. Depends on the song, but like this and like Face Waves have like very like robotic sounding stuff, especially with phase waves. The subject material is very, it's all about like technology and like the current state of it and how it affects people. Super relevant to us as like a technology band, and that we don't live on the same place. So those themes and all that really add into why doing that vocally with the effects happens. But also a lot of it comes with that we're just writing vocals in a certain way and sending stuff back and forth, that if the only way for me to get an idea back to Adam quickly is to just sort of fake it with Pro Tools tricks and stuff, by just pitch shifting something he already sent me, that is honestly, and if it sounds good, we will end up just keeping it by the end.
Trample with reason.
But like that's obviously actually Adam.
Trample with reason.
And that's also actually Adam, but this is like just the effect.
Trample with reason. Just take off me on.
Because octaves are such an awesome way to just like thicken up that stuff. And the one at the end here is hilarious too. Yeah. Let's just real quick on this solo tone because I love it. Ripping off the David Maxim, Greg Howe, vibrato. So fun. But yeah, let's see. What songs have we not visited much? Concrete was pretty self-explanatory. Actually, we had some cool, well, this was already an exposed section, but I don't know if anyone can catch that, but those little creaks are actually like the Richard's piano bench in the room while we were tracking that. So didn't feel like taking it out. I feel like now with like Isotope RX I could take it out, but honestly, it just builds character. See, I hope Richard didn't hear that. We had a couple spots where like, just because after the fact, it was easier to add like some fake piano for like very subtle. Conditions.
You're getting once alive. How about we?
All good stuff. Also, lots of big vocals in Quest too.
Inside the details, so uninviting. Can you hear me now? The damage has been done. They put a price on your soul. You can't stand the pressure that's within.
That's a good gang vocal with everybody.
Pressure that's within.
Vocal booth, just a bunch of us multiplied.
I've gotta run with it. Override.
There's some high stuff for Adam.
Override. You have trust in your sense. Get up off the fence, or else you'll be
I love the vocal stacking stuff too.
override.
We should just do an a cappella song, just for shits. Yo, I gotta call out one vocal spot now, just because we're here. Y'all heard that, right?
Shit's
That's like no filter, like fucking. You just do it.
take off. Shit's got away from me.
And if like you think that like that doesn't That's, yeah, it's awesome.
Lying in the home bed, just tossing and turning at night's time. The greatest parts of vulnerability. Oh, can we not look back?
Dude, just, again, all these vocal stacking stuff that we did, like, just totally up in the ante from the last record. Oof. And more. Also, Adam likes to listen to stuff offensively loud in his headphones, which I totally understand, and you can hear the song actually. Word, yeah, there's a bunch of cool stuff. So let's see. Tornado has some cool vocal things too. So good. But let's see. Is there any other weird things that we did in this song that are different?
I've since been it all. It sinks right in.
Oh yeah, this.
The only cause.
Oh no, is this when I realized that I'm actually missing stuff? Dang it, that other vocal isn't in there. Oh well. I will fix that. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's a bunch of crazy stuff that happens at the end of this song. So I got some acoustic. The piano's on the clean guitar track, because why not? But yeah, so we have the core of the band doing the outro, which sounds fine. And then you add some piano and acoustic on that. And I snuck that in as well towards the end. But let's see, this very last downbeat has a bunch of stuff hitting at the same time. So let's look at some of it. Like, we got a quad-tracked guitar thing. That's just the low B string, and then a chord. A little lower in volume, so together. That's super huge. And then if you add this crazy low octave, like pitched guitar, just for more, you get this. And then not to mention that the bass is just heavy enough on its own. Because this is like an open, ambiguous kind of chord thing, I think the cleans were actually like major. Or like suspended or something like that, yeah. And the key and the piano, of course. Just super heavy. More bass drops. And a thunderstorm. Cool. Yeah, that's a fun section. Let's see. Lullaby sounds really cool when there's not a bunch of us making noise over it. And Richard was just vibing some electric piano over the whole thing, basically. Skip ahead. Yeah, I love the string arrangements and stuff we did there. Another section that has a lot of that going on is the Face Waves outro. If you actually take out the main bulk of the band, there's like a bunch of stuff happening that you maybe wouldn't have heard otherwise. James Sonora holding it down on the shaker. Honestly, this whole section, I'm trying to remember like what movie it's from, but it like feels like it's some like Tim Burton, Danny Elfman like super emotional moment movie. Yeah, so the strings on pretty much all of this record was the LA scoring strings, actually. It's a pretty raw sounding library, as I said before, but you stack them up and add like the right kind of reverb or room like treatment space to them. Lots of delay and all that fun stuff for metal. or like film score style, honestly, and it just goops them up real nice and sounds awesome. I've been getting into the Berlin Strings library a little bit, and then Spitfire makes amazing stuff as well. I think the chamber, the Evolutions, yeah, they have a couple of libraries that are very small sections doing like different variations of like different articulations and stuff, and they put them in these like groups that you can make these like swells out of. I've been thinking of getting one of the smaller ones. They have a giant one for like a big symphony that I don't necessarily need. I kind of want those smaller sections for rock and intimate stuff like this. And so that would be fun to play with some Spitfire and Berlin strings, but this is the LA scoring strings. Really awesome. Check them out. There's a couple cool other like string spots on the record, I'm pretty sure. Like, 2 Days has a bunch of stuff going on.
Heart and energy, just put forth all your sympathy, please. Move on away from me, then pretend you can. Just block out my sight. Say you can do better. There's nothing more hysterical. I don't think I can find myself. Time machine. Lockdown on my side. It's not enough to take you out of my mind. Take the pain away. I'm finished.
So there's like just so much stuff happening in this song because it's a longer one, and I think just building it up a bunch helped like really sell it. Yeah, this bigger section here has all these bells, and which is a big staple for our band. But for a main part of the vibraphone sound, we actually had our friend Dylan Badkin actually perform vibraphone. If you saw him on our 2016 video for Intense Intense, the song from our first record, we did a re-release version of it where he played live vibraphone and did like a solo and stuff. It was awesome. That's still on YouTube. Check it out. But this is how some of it sounds on the record. Yeah, and again, these strings. LA scoring strings, so good. Very high and bright, but you have to cut through the mix. A little different. What was this transition? Yeah, the tremolo strings are really awesome too. Yeah, okay. Like whenever we were doing this song and we had this guitar part going, I always felt like a string section going and playing along with this too. but it wasn't until we actually went to put this down that I thought to just add it. This is a really cool section actually without the band. Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite songs that's ever been made. We repurposed a bunch of vocals from earlier in the song to do this like effecty thing. Yeah, lots of cool stuff here. And then, let's see. Some cool isolated claps. I think it's James and I in like the Berkeley studios. Well, we might have done this around vocal time. Lots of cool stuff here. But yeah, let's try this big section without the band. Also, the gang vocals were just James, Adam, and I in one room, and we somehow managed to make it sound like we were just this sea of people.
We can't help but hope there will be a return towards what we proudly called our only home. So start campaigns, and now you and I struggle.
Kind of rough. We might have had a couple shots.
When winter snow lies.
And all these background vocals are so sick too.
Snow lies.
This one.
In my eyes.
Yeah, goddamn. Get yourself an Adam, you won't regret it. Let's see. All this like reverse stuff. reverse stuff mixed with, oh, there's some vibes too. That melody from the chorus. One of like the 4 choruses in the song. Yeah, a bunch of really cool stuff on this record. Let's see. Oh yeah, the vocal section in Concrete that's like towards the middle.
Take this on you to come again. Follow me. I can make it up.
Has a bunch of like crazy stuff happening in like the backing tracks there to mix with the guitar stuff that I have going on. And it's honestly kind of downplayed. It's all just really textural, but it's like crazy technical stuff happening. So like I'll play it with the piano, guitar, yeah, piano, guitar, and like the vocal backing tracks, not the vocals. And check this out. That leads us into that, which is like crazy, but like, there's like a synth part. And the strings are also doubling it. Like that's probably impossible, but like it like still sounds kind of realistic with the way that it's programmed, which is why LA Scoring Strings is amazing. And that's just me trying to be Pliny. Hi, Pliny. Pliny. And that's just James jerking it with a shaker. Okay, next section.
Let's figure out if it's right. When you have to let me go, I'll hit the floor. Just let me go.
That's cool. This is an effect that Andy Remschlag came up with, our friend who was in the chat earlier, when we were working on this song as a demo back in Berkeley. And I was like, let's do it again. Yep, bunch of cool stuff. Let's see, backing tracks on this section are also very cool.
Bring me back to the nights when.
Because you got like the vibes actually playing the lead. Again, cellos just make everything better. Well, that might be a double bass. Any other cool string spots? There's like a little bit of strings in Quest in the middle there, if you even heard. Almost like an East Asian vibe. Yeah, they're just so like you can like hear this the rosin on those strings, like or like across the well, whatever strings. Good stuff. I sort of glossed through this song a little bit, but there's lots of like cool guitar effecty things that I ended up deciding on for this track. Like this section especially, it's all this stuff going on. All right. I think we've gone over quite a bit of this record and you guys get the idea. We're gonna have some technical difficulties bouncing around back and forth from different sessions to show you like more specific mix things. I honestly might just come back another day, since I should probably wrap this up. We've been on for about 3 hours, and I can do another like in-depth like mix pass on one of these songs. That's James Canola for you.
More like the late years. Oh, you got Bloomin' on the keys? More like he's pooping on the keys. I went to the doctor and I was like, Doc, I'm freaking out. I'm having an identity crisis. I feel like I'm a pair of teepees. And he said, I know your problem. You just need to relax. You're too tense. I could never stay in Boston after college. I could Berkeley afford the rent.
So if you want to hear more of those puns and all the good puns, oh my God, just check out our producer pack on the Aviations Bandcamp, and you'll get all this stuff and the tabs for all the songs in various formats and fun things like that. So if there's nothing else, I have no problem jumping on and doing another one of these soon.